Hey, folks. Let's assume that you're starting a new company and you're working out of 50 of the largest cities in the US, and you need to calculate the shipping costs from any one city to any other city. First thing we need to do is to find a list of your cities. We can do that in a couple of different ways. I did a Google search here and I could find the 50 largest cities in the US. Okay, well, this might work, but let's see what happens. Let's highlight this, which looks like it's got the name I want, but also this other stuff. If I highlight that and come down to the bottom of the list of 50 and hold down my shift key and click right there, I can get that information onto my clipboard. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back to my sheet and I'm going to go ahead and paste. Well, that's great, but I don't want all of that information to be in there. So I'm going to have to strip that out. Let's see how I can do that. I should be able to do that with a regex replace. So this is going to be equal to regex replace. And we're going to be looking at the data that's in A1. And then we're going to need to write our regex expression, which is going to look something like this. Now this is regex replace. So what we're going to do here is I've done this and pasted it to my clipboard, make it a little easier. This is basically saying, get me all the alphanumeric characters, get me the spaces, and replace it, or get everything, exclude everything but that, and replace the other stuff with blanks. So if I hit that, yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for, and there's my list. I don't like the way that formatted, so command backslash on the command backslash. Should have done that, but it's not doing it. So here's my list of cities. Now that's a set of formulas, so I need to highlight that entire range, copy, and Command Shift V and paste. So let's see, copy and Command Shift V, paste, and now I've gotten rid of the formulas and I just have my list of cities. That's what I was after. Now another way we could do this real quickly, if we didn't like that way of doing this, we could actually come to this website, and I'm going to use a import HTML. I'm going to grab this, copy, come back to my sheet. This is going to be equals import HTML, and we're going to do that. And around in quotes, I'm going to paste in that and comma, and it's a table, quotation mark, comma, and it looks like it's table 1. And if I do that, there we go. I actually have my list of cities this way as well, maybe a little bit slicker. Either way, that formula gets me a list of the 50 biggest cities along with the states. This just gives me the names. I can decide which way I wanted to do that. If I wanted to use this set of cities, I can do a Command C, come over to here, do a Command Shift V, and that is going to give me the list as a set of cities, not as the formula. Now, in order to use this, what I'm going to do is go ahead and depending on how I was going to do this, I might want to turn this set of cities into a named range. And you can do that by taking my helper sheet here, sheet 5, and I can select K over here, and I can call this cities. If I do that, now I'm going to be able to use this word cities as a named range in my formulas. Now, one way I had been doing this was to take all my cities and build a table, all of my locations from New York. So if I did that, I'd have to have 50 rows of New York, 49 rows in New York, and then I'd have to paste in all the cities that aren't New York, and then I'd have to build all the Philadelphias and everything that's not Philadelphia. I'd have to create this table A, B. I'd have to come up with a price for each one of those, and then I could use this formula here. I could use a formula that I would copy down that would use a filter formula. And in this case, I had set up a named range begin, named range end. And so this formula says if the length of V1, and I'm using that so that I can not get an error message as I drag this down, but I'm filtering the cost, that's this column. So I'm filtering the cost with begin E1 and end F1, and then same thing here, the cost begin E1 and end 1. So what we're doing here, we're filtering that data. But this is pretty complex, and these formulas have to be copied down, which I think we will also find. But I have a simpler way to do this. So let's go and check it out. So I've got my list of cities now. Let's see what I can do with those list of cities. First of all, I think I'll come in here and I'll create a new sheet. And on sheet 6, what I think I'm going to want to do is, one thing I'm going to want to know is what is my cost per mile. I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to put in a start city and an end city, and what is the cost? Well, here's how we're going to do this. First of all, we are going to, let's go ahead and let's drag this down. Let's do this as a bold. So our start city and end city. So what we want to do is I want to do a data validation on this start cities, and I'm going to do that by coming over here to sheet 5 where I created my list of cities. This one right here, I'm going to use this column here. I'm going to use sheet 5 K:K. We'll go ahead and use that because then if we added cities, it would still work. And let's come back and see I have a drop-down menu of all of my different cities. Let's go ahead and do something like that. And if I drag this across, I can use that same validation table, and I can actually just drag this down. Let me go ahead and delete the content so these end up empty. But I could drag this validation table down. Let's do 44 of them. And my cost per mile, let's say it's 99 cents. That's what it cost me per mile. So then what we're going to do, this sheet has a custom formula that I've set up called mileage. So what we're going to do is see what happens if we do an equals mileage. Now mileage is not a regular function, but it's a function I've written in an app script. So mileage is the start, comma, the end. And we want to do that mileage, and then we want to multiply that by whatever we've put in A2. And it should be calculating. We've got an error. Let's see what we got. So when we select cities, if we don't have any information in here, we get an error message. So we want to actually get rid of that. So we want to say, if that's an error, if error, this formula that we've written, then we don't want to do anything, and that should get rid of our error. Now, if we start in New York and go to Los Angeles, this should calculate for us, and we should get a cost of what it would cost to go from New York to Los Angeles. Let's make sure we have enough space here. So now what we would have to do is copy this formula down, and as many rows as we might need it. It's not going to give us an error message. And now I should be able to calculate from Chicago to, let's say, Nashville, and we should get a cost based on $1.25. Now, what if it costs us $1.55? You can see all of my costs go up. So if it costs 32 cents, you see how we could work with that. So it was a much quicker way than my other way of doing this shipping, having to build all my tables and come up with my calculations and then go through this process with my filter. I think this is a much simpler way to do this. Here's my cost per mile. I start in a city, end in a city. I'm building this list of cities with a drop down, and then my cost is my mileage calculation. Now, my script is pretty simple. It's a simple custom function that lets you get the driving distance between two addresses. And that's what's doing this calculation when I use my formula mileage, because it's a custom function. So I had one more. Let's just see, what's it from Jacksonville to Fort Worth, and we should get a calculation there. It's going to cost $329. So now I'm set up with my new company. I know my shipping costs, and as they change, I simply change one thing and go 55 cents a mile, and that's my new costs. Very simple way to calculate costs for shipping.